We all want to get better at reading lanes. In fact, in bowling, it's just about the hardest thing to do. Why is that? Because you can't see any of the obstacles. You see, all the obstacles in bowling have to be either felt or watched. You can watch your ball's behavior. You can tell when it's skidding or when it's hooking. Well, I'm at 39 feet down the lane right now because that's how far from the foul line that this lane was oiled. This now becomes the end of the pattern, but it's where I start when I read lanes. You see, I first need to know from where to get the ball started at the end of the pattern. If the lane's really slick, I don't want to start just hooking the ball, try to get it to recover, come from nowhere, because the back end of the lane's slick. I'm fighting the lane's tendency. But if the lane hooks a lot, conversely, I don't want to get the ball to set up in the pocket early, or I'll be fighting those shots through the nose. I need to know what the back ends of the lanes are doing in order to come up with a game plan, a strategy to marry up to this back end as to use it to my advantage. If the lane's really slick, I want to get that ball in on that pocket and have it hold. But if the back end's hooking, that's when I want to take that big hook in there and give the pocket away. With all of the high-tech lane machines we have today, applying oil to a lane has become an exact science. These machines can determine how much oil is applied to each board and at what distance. And based on how much oil is applied to each of these boards, that determines not only where you might want to play on the lane, but also what the scoring environment is going to be. Now, we've put a pattern up on a lane, and the darker the region, the more oil was applied in that area. And as it gets lighter, the more friction you have because the less oil was applied to the lane. Now, in this pattern, oil was applied to the 39-foot mark. Everything after 39 feet is bone dry. Now, the folks at Kegel Training Center gave me an equation the other day that works pretty well to determine what board your ball should be on when it exits the pattern. It's called the -31 equation. Let's say on this pattern, we've got 39 foot of oil. You subtract 31 from that number, you get 8. So in this pattern, typically you want your ball around the 8th board at 39 feet. Now in this pattern, we've oiled the lane to 35 feet. So if we do the same equation, 35 minus 31, then your ball should be on about the 4th board coming out of the pattern at 35 feet. This puts your ball in an area on the lane that really marries up good with how much friction is on the back end, so as not to fight the tendency of the pattern. Now, this isn't exact, but I have tested it on a lot of patterns, and it's pretty accurate. So let's put this 35-foot pattern on a lane in 3 dimensions. Now, lane men today graph these patterns, and you can find them. Just ask the front desk. Usually, they'll have a copy for you. They'll have a lot of information on there, but the picture you can use quite well without all the numbers. Now, on this 35-foot pattern, I have a lot of friction on the back end, so I need to get my ball exposed to the outside portion of the lane at around the 35-foot mark. But now I need to come to the front end to find out where a consistent place to start my ball's roll from the foul line. Now, in this case, I've got a lot of oil in the center portion of the lane, but not much outside the first arrow. So I'm going to want to use this friction on the outside part of the lane. So I might want to start my ball around the 5th board and float it out a little bit as to expose it to this friction. Friction is power in bowling. And depending on how much friction there is on the outside part of the lane, that's going to determine how much speed I'm going to have to use. Typically, on a 35-foot pattern, I'm going to have to get that speed up there to keep the ball off the nose. But I also have other options based on this picture that this pattern has given me. I've got a lot of concentration of oil in the mid portion of the lane. It's second arrow to second arrow. Well, with a little more curve on my ball, I can move inside and play this type of shot, where I go from about the 3rd arrow to start, swing it out to around the 2nd arrow and take advantage of this hold area that this medium blue is indicating. Or I might even want to stand right around the 2nd arrow and play a straighter shot. In both of these cases, I'm going to expose my ball to the outside portion of the lane late. I got to take advantage of all that hook on the back end. But now let's lay the 39-foot pattern on the lane. As you can tell from the darker areas, there's a lot more oil on this lane. So I might want a straighter shot, or maybe even a bigger bowling ball, one that hooks more. But all the while, I still need to have this ball coming off of that 39-foot area at around the 8th board. So in this pattern, I might want to take a shot around the 3rd arrow. Now, there's a lot more oil in this lane, so I'd need a bowling ball that hooks quite a bit. But to take advantage of this picture that the pattern has given me, I would throw it around this 3rd arrow, swing it out to around the 8th board at the end of the pattern, and then let it just walk right up to the pocket. Now, there are other options. I might want to take a straighter shot, one right around the 2nd arrow. Because you see, I have some ledges that are in the mid part of the lane that is going to help my ball hold the pocket, or at least float out to that 8th board. But on this pattern, I have a 3rd option. I could get way inside here because of the amount of oil that is applied to the front part of the lane. And I can really turn one over and float it, expose it to 8 way down the lane, and let it just walk back. I'm going to have a lot more turn, a lot more revs on this, but it's certainly an option given the picture I'm looking at of the pattern on the lane. Hey, and just for funsies, why don't we put the US Open pattern out? Yeah, this is what it looks like. It's completely flat. Now, it does have a little more concentration of oil right on the laydown area, but the bowler's not feeling this. What we feel when we bowl on this US Open pattern is a lot like it looks, flat and long. 40 to 44 feet is the US Open application. That's why the scores in the US Open are less than any other tournament that the pros bowl on. There's just no help here. Now, the strategy on this US Open pattern will be a lot more conservative. We're not just going to throw the ball out and wait for that big hook. You're probably not going to get it. It's 40 to 44 feet of flat oil, and a lot of it. So typically in the US Open, you'll see the players really get their ball up tight into the pocket quickly and then let it lay down, sit there. Because there's not a lot of friction to the outside parts of the lane, swinging the ball just doesn't help you much. On this pattern, what we're trying to do is leave our spares in clusters, eliminate the splits, run those spares down, and be consistent throughout the whole day. And one more caveat about this US Open pattern: carry. It's hard to carry when your ball doesn't see friction. It's sliding. It's got 44 feet of oil, so the ball is just skidding and sliding. So you're going to get a lot of deflection. And as soon as you get the ball to roll up a little bit, it tends to hook high because you're trying to get the ball to lay down in the pocket. Not always will the ball just lay down. And learning how to strategize on all of these different oil patterns has become the most important aspect of the game of bowling.
Here's Duke looking for 3 straight strikes to start it off. Got it!
Norm's going to show you a little versatility by moving in and wheeling on it.
Fitting strike.